Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to, I believe it's week 4 of 2022. I think that's what we're at. I am so excited to talk about the books that I read during this week. I have 10 books to talk about with you. But first, we have some new channel members to welcome to the Book Refuge. We have Heatherly, who joined at the Fated Friend level. Heatherly, welcome to the Book Refuge. If you are not already a member of my Discord, make sure you check that out down below if you want to, and message me once you get on there so I can give you access. The same goes for Christina Ledesma, who is a sassy supporter, and Sarah Scheid, who also joined at the Fated Friend level. So all three of you, thank you so much for choosing to support my channel. It means so much to me. Also wanted to remind everyone that I did just have a merch update last week, and the designs have shipped out to the people who ordered last weekend, which is very exciting. Very excited about this. There are some super fun designs down below, and there will be more coming in the next couple weeks as well. There's still some designs that I'm working on, and make sure you check those out. I can't wait till I get mine. I should have it for next week's wrap up, so I'll be able to show it to you. I'm very excited about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the books this week. Yeah, there was some interesting books that I read this week. I'm very excited to talk about them, so let's go ahead. The first book that I want to talk about, hold on, I have my notes over here for everything. I've started using that this year, and I'm happy that I did. Go away now. How do I make you go away? There we go. So that I don't forget as much, because when you read as many books as I do, you do forget things sometimes. So we have The Ips King by Grace Draven. I'm continuing my deep dive into Grace Draven. It probably won't end up being like a fully like deep dive. I do want to read some of her shorter books that she has, but I'm interviewing Grace on February 4th on my channel. Pharaoh Feb starts this coming week. It starts on Tuesday. I think it starts on Tuesday. I am so excited about that. I have a wonderful TBR put together already. But this is me catching up to the Wraith King series. This starts with a new couple. The first 2 books were about a different couple. And then this is about Sarovek and Anuset. And Anuset is actually the Kai in this book, which was so fun. So she has gray skin and sharp teeth and white hair. And she is a fierce warrior woman. She is a cousin to Brishan from the first book. And Sarovek and Anuset are sent on a particular mission, which I don't want to spoil because it is a direct result of what happened in the first 2 books. But for the last couple books, Sarovek, who is a kind of like envoy for his king, he has been really kind of macking on her this whole time, saying that he really wants to be with her and that it's gonna happen and all that good stuff. And he now is like, how do I describe this? They have this mission that they have to complete, and like he's kind of the sunshine, she's grumpy. This is a road trip aspect. In Anuset's mind, it's kind of an enemies to lovers because the human and the Kai, they still have a lot of distrust for each other, but they are kind of bonded through the trauma that happened in the first 2 books. So yeah, it's like an enemies to lovers, but then it's kind of a friends to lovers as well throughout the books. And then there's forced proximity because of the road trip. And yeah, I really loved that Anuset, the female, was kind of the monster race. She's, you know, just as strong, if not stronger, than Sarovek. She is a warrior woman. They can fight. They are equally matched. And so it definitely made, when we finally got some spicy times, amazing, because usually it's the man who could kind of throw the woman around, and she literally could like hurt him if she's not careful. And I just really liked that turnaround. Not to say that he's weak or not able to hold his own, but he definitely has his work cut out for him with her. I did actually give this a 4.5 star. This one was, I feel like, significantly longer than the previous 2 books. as well as the slow burn was extremely long. I did give this 3 for the spice rating because the kind of sexy times they have are pretty advanced, but it also like doesn't have a lot in it. But I just found myself ending up being very charmed by it throughout, as I have been with all of Grace's books I've read so far. So I still gave it a 4.5 star, but I didn't love it as much as some of the other ones I read. And the trigger warning for this is mostly going to be PTSD and then some serious violence that gets enacted on both of them. But it's mostly PTSD for the trauma from the previous books is what I would say. The next book that I finished is Wicked Beauty by Katee Robert. Yes, I got to read an arc of that book. I got it from Edelweiss, so if you are a reviewer who has used Edelweiss before, Wicked Beauty is up and they are sending it out. I know on NetGalley there is a preview available to review. I'm sure when it gets closer, they'll have it available. This book doesn't come out until June, so I'm not going to say too much about it. This is a menage between Helen, Patroclus, and Achilles, so definitely know that. This is an enemies to lovers, forced proximity. It's a retelling, and there is a little bit of dynamic play going on in this one. I describe this as a godly Hunger Games because Ares has been lost in the previous book, and we need a new Ares. And the way that that happens in this is that people are going to compete. Helen wants to compete to become Ares. She's the daughter of the previous Zeus. The new Zeus is her brother. That is a title that gets passed on in this world. And Achilles and Patroclus are longtime lovers and partners. They have open relationships, but they've been devoted to each other for a very long time. They're both bisexual. And yeah, I don't want to like say too much else. I did give this 5 stars. It has a 4 on the spice scale. There are some great sexy times. There are some trigger warnings for this. One of these wasn't even listed by Katee Robert, and I know it might not be for everyone, but I was extremely disturbed by the level of misogyny that is expressed towards Helen. And you all know me. You all know me. That is not something that I normally am like triggered by. You know, like obviously it bothers me when a heroine is treated disrespectfully, but she has an abusive ex. Her family dynamic is totally fucked. I mean, that's what it is in Dark Olympus and the Greek mythology in general. It's fucked. She has death of a parent to deal with, and yeah, the misogyny by even like Achilles for a good part of the book. Patroclus isn't like that, but Achilles definitely is. And yeah, her ex is Paris, is her ex-boyfriend, and he is just so manipulative and cruel to her and uses her weaknesses against her in just this horrible way. And yeah, the way she's treated in this, it was a little bit triggering for me. But the thing that I want to say, and this was still a 5 stars, is because this is Katee Robert, she does not let her heroines be mistreated for long. So part of the thing that kept me going is I knew that relative to the level of misogyny and mistreatment that Helen got, I knew she would feel victorious in an equal and opposite way. Does that make sense? You know, it's like the law of thermodynamics. That is how Katee is with her heroines. And if there's one thing I knew I could trust her with, it's that she's not going to let her heroine end the book without complete victory of those situations. And I feel that that happened, which was why this book like was honestly riding at like a 3.5 star for me. And I was like, oh, I am not going to have good things to say about this. And then the way that Helen becomes triumphant, and I'm not just saying about the godly Hunger Games part, I mean in her relationships, in the way people see her, and all of these things, I was cheering. I was very pleased with that. So I ended up giving it 5 stars. And it's another Katee Robert that I just have to sit on for 6 months, and oh, poor me. Oh, poor me. I know, I'm a whiny bitch, and you hate me. It's fine. Okay, moving along. We have another fan fiction to talk about. I'm not gonna be sorry. I know most of you like either like don't care, or there's people who really care and you're happy that I'm diving into fan fiction. I put a post up on my community page on like Wednesday asking for other Harry Potter ships that people liked fan fiction for, or for other fan fictions that people wanted to point me to, because I'm just finding it very comforting, and I really am understanding why there are millions and millions of fan fictions done for everything. And it really was difficult for me not to just do a full headlong dive into them, because I was so just like, this is all that I want to read. We'll talk more about that later on, but the point being, I read Contradictions by Ampersand. This is a Dromini fan fiction that I got on AO3. I will try to remember to link it down below. I know some people were having trouble finding ones that I was talking about, but it is pretty simple. Like, you can literally go to AO3 on any device and look up the fan fiction, and then there's an option to download it, and you can download it to your phone, and then if you have a Kindle address, you can email it to yourself and it will appear in your Kindle. Okay, I am not going to include steps how to do that. You can just Google how to do it and it will show you, okay? But you can literally do that with anything on AO3 and it's amazing. So, this one was an enemies to lovers, kind of a, what's the way to set this up? So the way to set this up, okay, we have our Hermione in this one, and she is having some trouble in her sex life. That's the setup of this. She actually has dated Ron in the past. They have broken up since then. No hard feelings, but it just wasn't working. She has been trying to go on dates. She's literally been doing kind of like, you know, online dating for the witch. That's what she's been doing. And she's not finding pleasure with men. And not necessarily because none of them are trying or any of that, but she's just not able to fully immerse herself in the experience. And so it is causing some sexual dissatisfaction. So being the smart witch that she is, Hermione does some research and she discovers the possibility that BDSM could be a good option for her, because she's read that when you get into subspace, or when you are under a dominant's control, a good dominant won't let you think about anything else but what's happening. So she does this research and she decides to give it a try. So she goes to this sex club where you fill out a very long survey, and they will match you up with a dominant who can service the needs that you both have, you know. And so she agrees to meet with a certain wizard she gets assigned to, she gets matched with, and this wizard leaves her a note that says, please put on this blindfold, sit on the couch, and I will come in and we'll discuss and negotiate everything beforehand. And so the wizard comes in, and she's like, why do I need to be blindfolded? And he's like, well, I read your reasons for coming here, and part of your issue is not being able to get out of your head. And so first we're going to talk and discuss what you're interested in, and like all these things that if you are a BDSM lover, or you are a Harry Potter fanfiction lover who isn't sure if you like BDSM, you know, either one, or you are beginning with BDSM, this was fascinating, right? Because it goes through the quote-unquote rules for safe play and for having a good relationship with a dom and a sub and all these things. And of course, Hermione's done her research, but then this dominant is here to kind of show her, you know, things that you can't necessarily just explain when you're doing research. And they end up having a little bit of play while she still has her blindfold on. And she also has glamored herself. That's the other thing. She has glamored herself. And the wizard obviously can tell that she's glamored herself. And she's like, I, just want to make sure that I really stay anonymous. And the wizard is like, no, that's totally fine. Well, they do a little bit of play. And she ends up sitting on his lap. And he is, doing a little bit of fun time with her. And when she orgasms, her glamour, falls. And the wizard who is pleasuring her is like Hermione Granger, and she rips off her blindfold and she is sitting on Draco Malfoy's lap. So she hightails it out of there, even though he's trying to keep her calm, and he's like, you can't disapparate right now, you need to wait, like, you could have subdrop, like, he's going through all these things of, like, I know this is freaking me out, it's freaking me out, but he's trying to be a good dominant, and she just won't have it. She just zips out of there and is like, gone. Well, it is true that Draco, he did end up going to Azkaban for a certain amount of time. He, like, did his time, and now he has been working with the Ministry for the last few years. I think this one takes place, like, 10 or 12 years after the war type of time. And he has been working with the Ministry to, you know, help them catch dark wizards and things like that. So he's actually been, like, working with Harry. It's very nice to have, like, Harry and Ginny, like, be alive in this one. This one was still a darker-ish kind of one, but it was more darker in the way that, like, a sexy dark romance is, not in, like, I've killed everyone you love type of way, if that makes sense, right? So Draco comes to find her at work the next day and talk with her, and he's like, I want to talk with you about our scene, and then we can talk about the fact that it was me, because he's like, whoever your dom is, you cannot just leave after a scene. It's very bad for your mental health. And so he actually does, like, aftercare with her the next day, which isn't when you should do aftercare, but he's like, this is what, you know, when you end up going to see someone else, because he's assuming she won't ever want to see him again, he's like, this is what you should expect from a good dom. They should ask you what comforts you, give you a warm drink, get you some food, cuddle you, whatever you're going to need, make sure you get that. And so he's like, can I, you know, and he like stands behind her, I think, and like pets her head, and it's just very calming. And she decides that she would like to see him again. And he obviously had become very, like, connected with her even through this one scene that they did, and so he's willing to meet her again. And so they set up some rules that are a little bit more for, like, a dom-sub relationship, and they agree to start meeting each other every Friday night to scene together at this club. So that is the setup of this story. Sorry that it was very long, but I need to set it up. And so obviously the main conflicts of this one are, this is now kind of like a secret dating situation. They are engaging in some kinky sex of a few varying degrees. Nothing like totally over the top. Like, I don't know. If you've read any kind of BDSM, none of it is totally crazy. There is a magical dildo that Draco can make it do whatever he wants it to. It can change size and shape and vibration pattern. That was kind of amazing, not gonna lie. And this Draco, I just want to reiterate, we met, or say for the first time, I am obsessed with him. I still love Manacled better. That is a completely different type of story. That is an epic, dark fantasy. This was more of like just an epic dark romance. And there is a fantasy element because they are doing magical, but this felt a lot more just like a dark contemporary with like a secret dating element. And then, you know, it was with fanfiction characters. And it's what I am quickly understanding why fanfiction is so amazing, because again, it takes kind of already established world, even though the characters aren't necessarily the same, right? They're called Draco and Hermione, but they're not really the same in any way besides having that name and having magic. And you're able to just explore amazing things. Like, he is a very soft dom. Like, he's a soft dom in that he doesn't like to do like pain play or like hurtful things. He likes bondage. He likes control. And he very much likes praising. If you have a praise kink, y'all, I was swooning constantly while I read this, like constantly swooning, because he calls her like darling or sweetheart, and Hermione is just like his little kitten whenever he calls her that, and I was just like, Okay, enough of that. I gave this one 5 stars, and it was a 5-star spice rating. I gave this one 5 stars. The amount of sex, the kind of sex, there was a lot of sex. There really was. But it did also have another plot going on, because they're keeping their relationship secret, as well as Hermione starts to suspect that Draco may be working for the Ministry for nefarious means. And she's not sure if she trusts him, but she's willing to keep having sex with him and also kind of investigate what's happening. So there's that. Okay, moving along. We got to keep it going. I read Slightly Married by Mary Balogh. If you are an astute viewer, you know that this was on my February TBR, but I don't always keep myself patient. And I was out of kind of audiobooks to listen to that were on my January TBR, so I decided to start the February one. So this is starting the Bedouin Saga, which a bunch of my friends have read, a bunch of viewers have recommended to me. I've read a lot of Mary Balogh's backlist. As soon as someone saw I was reading this, everyone started telling me which Mary Baloghs they want me to read. That's wonderful. I'm not upset about that, but this isn't my first Mary Balogh. I have read about 30 of her books. I've read a lot. This, in fact, the Slightly and the Simply series are pretty much some of the only ones I haven't read, besides like her old standalones, and I have read a lot of those. So, if you want to recommend a Mary Balogh, you know, check my Goodreads first, because I probably read it, and you're going to recommend The Survivors Club, or The Westcotts, or Silent Melody, and I'm going to be like, I've read it. So if you're wondering if I've read it, I've rated it and read it, and it's on my Goodreads, okay? But anyway, this is the start of the Bedouin Saga, and I have all the books for this series, and I plan to get through them. I have decided that I'm probably going to pace them out a little bit, because I know that they get better. A lot of people, my friends, everyone are like, but I did want to start at the beginning, because I want to meet all the characters. And this one is about Colonel Bedouin, Aiden, who is going to Ringwood Manor because one of his men saved his life in battle and died, and this man's dying wish was that he would take care of his sister. So he goes to see his sister, and his sister is actually about to lose her home. It was left to her by her father, and when he died, she has 1 year to get married or it passes to her cousin, and she literally is like a week away from losing it. Her and Aiden, they do not get along right away. They kind of get bad impressions of each other, and she thinks he is cold and rude and never smiles, and he thinks that she is taking care of more people than she should be, because she has taken in some orphans. And she just tries to do good for the land around, for people around her. And he thinks that that is just like, why are you stretching yourself so thin, blah, blah, blah. So he ends up proposing a marriage of convenience, and plans to be gone. He's like, I'll marry you. I'll make sure that the town knows that we're married, and then I will keep your cousin from taking your land from you, but I'm going to go live my life. I'm still in the army. He's just on leave for a couple months after his injury and like the death of his men and everything. And she is like, okay, we can do that. And then there ends up being all these different things where they end up still being around each other. And then they're like, well, why don't we have sex for the time that we're together, so that no one can question that we're actually together. We will have sex, and maybe you'll get pregnant and you'll get a baby of your own. That'll be great. But I'm still going to leave. Like, this is the whole thing. So you're kind of maybe seeing the thing that was a little bit annoying to me, all the way until the last fucking chapter of this book. They're planning to live apart the whole time. I did love that the hero admits his feelings first. I do love the way that he admits them. It was very swoony, but for me, it was too little too late. These kind of characters are super frustrating for me. But it is classic Mary Balogh, and I don't have a problem with that. And I am not scared away from the series. I will absolutely continue. But I did give this one 3.5 stars, and it's barely a 2 on the spice scale. There is a trigger warning for grief and a little bit of PTSD, so make sure you know that. Then I did a reread of Savage Hearts because the audiobook came out. This was a 6-star read from 2021, so it was obviously still a 6-star this time around. This is a 4 on the Steam scale. This is a mafia adjacent kind of story. We have Malik, who wants to get revenge on Declan, who is the hero from the second book, because Declan is responsible for the death of his brother, and so he wants to get revenge on him. And so he goes to do that, and then he sees Riley, who is soon to be the sister-in-law of Declan, and he mistakes her for a prostitute. I'm not sure why, because she definitely doesn't look like one at all. But he just can't understand why this woman would be around Declan if she wasn't there to be used for her body, apparently. So he starts trying to like warn her away from Declan, and she's like, dude, like, my sister's marrying him. He's gonna be my brother-in-law. And then Malik gets really upset, and he starts trying to kind of manipulate her for sexual favors, and then eventually he kidnaps her. So this is a captor-captive. This is a big age gap. This is super sexy and dark and grumpy sunshine as well. Like, all of the heroines in this series are just, they're amazing. This also has a wonderful setup for the next book, which isn't coming out until like May or June, but I'm very excited for it. Also, I'll just show this real quick. JT Geissinger just announced that after she finishes this series, which again, there'll be one more book, I think. It should be the last book. She is going to do a standalone that is a pen pal with a prisoner, and it looks like this. And this is the same model from this book. Isn't this amazing? It's available for pre-order if you want to. I can't wait for that one. Okay, moving along. Then I listened to another book that was on my TBR for February, because the audiobook came up early for me, and that was The Scoundrel in Her Bed by Lorraine Heath. This is book 3 in A Sin for All Seasons. This is about a family of bastards who are all the bastard children of lords and ladies who tried to give their babies to a baby farm. Well, not tried to, they did. But what didn't happen is that their babies weren't killed, because that's what baby farming was. It was when a lord or a lady had a baby out of wedlock, or a baby they didn't want to keep, and they gave it up. And they paid someone to take their baby, and usually that person would kill them. Sometimes they would resell them to someone else to be used for horrible things, or maybe to a family who wanted them, but usually it was to kill them. Very dark setting. You can imagine some of the triggers for this. And each one of these 5 of the 6 children, one of the children is actually the natural born daughter of the woman, but Edie Truelove, she is the baby farmer, because she wasn't a baby farmer. She kept them all and raised them as her own. So she has these 6 children, and that's what the series is about. I know I did a super long explanation, but I don't care. I am loving this series. And so this one is actually about the heroine from book 2, which I think I read last week, or else it was 2 weeks ago. It might have been 2 weeks ago. But that hero had got left at the altar. And this is the woman who left him at the altar. She has had a very traumatic past. There are a lot of triggers for this. We will get to them in a minute, because some of them are spoilers. But I will touch on them in just a minute. And she left him at the altar with a note saying that they were friends. So this wasn't like, I'm scared of him, but she's like, I just can't marry you, knowing that my heart belongs to someone else. There was someone I loved when I was young, and I wasn't able to be with him, and he still owns my heart. And so she left him at the altar. She didn't leave him at the altar to go find this man, who we know who this man is, because he is Finn Truelove, who is the brother to, he's one of the bastards, right? And she has decided to stay away from her family, because she knows her family would probably try to make her marry someone else, force her into another relationship that she doesn't want to be in. And she has been using her pin money, and also has gotten a job, and she's using that money to buy babies from baby farmers and give them to a school run by nuns who are taking care of these babies. So this woman who was in love with someone who is baby farmed. So that's the thing. She doesn't know where Finn is, but she knows that Finn was baby farmed. He's told her this back when they were young. And she is rescuing these babies from death. And it is like she gave up her life of privilege to work as a servant and use that money to save these babies who are the bastards of rich people who are just throwing their babies away. And I cannot tell you how much that makes me love this heroine. I cannot even tell you how much I adore her that she does that. It makes me so happy. So, but when Finn and Lavinia run into each other again, in the beginning of this book, they run into each other again, and then we start having flashbacks to what happened to them. Now, if you follow my Goodreads, you know that I immediately was like, God, I hate flashbacks. I don't want to know about what happened when they were young. I was wrong. I needed to know what happened when they were young. And Lorraine Heath, this woman knows her business. This woman knows her business, because we see them then when Lavinia is 15 and Finn is 21 when they first meet. And he actually is supposed to kill her horse because she was a little bit of a spoiled brat and she abused her horse, not like abuse, but she was misusing her horse, and it caused her horse to throw her. And her father was furious at the horse, and so he calls the butchers to take her horse, and Finn is who shows up. But Finn saves her horse and keeps it. He doesn't kill it. And she meets him that night, like they run into each other, and she's trying to stop him from taking her horse, and he's like, listen, I have to take your horse. Because your father, if I don't do it, someone else will do it. But I will keep her. And I will bring you to see her. So they start meeting once a week. And he takes her to meet this horse. And they do this for 2 years. And when she's 17 and he's 23, they finally, like, she is supposed to be having her season. And eventually get engaged to the man that she leaves at the altar 8 years later. And they make love when she is 17. And they plan to run away together. Only something stops them. So that's what we find out in the flashbacks. In the present time, he believes that she did something horrible, and she believes that he stood her up. So they both have this, like, hatred towards each other for turning their love sour when they were young. And neither of them really knows what happened, and that's what we figure out. And, oh my God, when we figure out why these two precious people could not be together as young ones, I was devastated. And then it just kept going. But I'll tell you this now. So I gave this 5 stars. It's only really a 2 on the spice scale. This isn't super spicy. I adored this book. I am going to tell you what the trigger warnings are now, and they are spoilers. So I'm going to put up this spoiler thing and come back when I hold up the next book if you don't want to know. So the trigger warnings for this book are loss of a child, but not loss of a child as in miscarriage. Loss of a child as in her family took her baby away and gave it to a baby farmer as well. She was abused by her mother and father into taking her baby away, as well as she was forcefully institutionalized because she wouldn't forget about her child, and she was put in a mental institution for multiple years. But then her father dies, so sorry, again, more spoilers, like, and she gets brought out of it, and she's supposed to marry this guy. So, like, that is, like, the trigger warnings of this, is the PTSD of having her baby taken away, and part of the reason why she is rescuing these children is she just sees them all as being her child. So, yeah. This book touched me very, very much. It was very beautiful. It was very painful, but it was fabulous. It was wonderful. Okay, next book up. I have Forged in Fire by Juliette Cross. This is going to be a re-release. This book was actually the very first book that Juliette Cross ever wrote, and then they're getting new covers, and they've been updated for spiciness, okay? So Juliette, who we know writes some delightful paranormal smut for us, wonderful, hilarious books. I'm saying that with all love. And this first series of hers, she's recently gotten the rights back to it, and she's giving it a facelift and a re-release. So this is a trilogy. They will be re-released over the next, like, few weeks. So this one re-releases on February 1st, so it comes out on Tuesday with this beautiful new cover. This series is a fantasy / like paranormal. It's like angels and demons, so it's kind of like paranormal. And our heroine has come of age, and she is what is called a vessel. That's why this is called the Vessel Trilogy. And that means that she can be possessed by a demon, and they will have, like, immense power. She will have immense power on her own if she remains, like, untainted. And there's 3 ways that she can be tainted. It can be her mind, her, like, you know, her soul or her body. So that's basically like if she has hatred in her heart, that's like the mind part. If she has killed someone, that's like her body or her soul. And if she has had sex, that is her body. So she meets Jude, who rescues her from being mistreated by a demon in the beginning. And it turns out that he is her, I forgot what it's called, demon, the master of demons, I think it's what it is. And so he can keep her safe. And also they are extremely attracted to each other. He's very alpha. He very much wants her. But until she comes into her complete power and she'll be able to protect herself from anyone trying to get at her, they can't fully consummate their feelings for each other, because then she would be able to be possessed because her body would be defiled. But Juliette did go back in and ramp up things that don't include penetrative sex. So this was still like, I mean, I only gave it like a 2.5 because there aren't a ton of that in this. This is really like world building and setting things up. But I had a good time with this. It was a bit slow in the beginning. It does read a bit younger, like it's YA, new adult-ish, but I mean, she does start out as 20, and I mean, the sex definitely isn't like YA, it's definitely new adult-ish, and Jude is very, very sexy. And again, full disclosure, I'm very close friends with Juliette. I talk with her multiple times a week. This first book is not one that I probably would have just picked up on my own, but I want to read these books and talk about them on my channel, and I'm very excited I'm going to read the next one, which is Sealed in Sin, and that one will come out in February. I'm going to read it for Pharaoh Feb, and I'm very excited to see how things are going to ramp up, because there was a lot of world building that got laid. And again, this really like reminded me of books I loved when I was like younger, like teen and early 20s age. So there's a lot of potential, and I'm very excited about it. Then I did a reread of Monroe. I got my physical copy in of this. Yes, this is the sizes that they're going to be now. I know they don't match the mass market. And yes, this was $18 because it is an indie published paperback. I saw some people in some of her like fan groups like complaining how much the physical book would cost now. And part of the thing is that she's not traditionally published anymore. These are published with Valkyrie Press, which is her indie publish that she does, and this is what they're going to be now. They're going to be this size now. This is the same size as like the Shadow's Seduction or whatever, her indie pub that way, and the same size as the last Game Maker book. That's just how it is now, but it's a great thing because Kresley is in more control than ever before, and this book was amazing. I read this 2 weeks ago. I've already talked about it then, but the audiobook, I had the chance to listen to that now that the book is out, because I'd read an arc of this before, and I got to listen to the glorious sounds of Robert Pekov bringing to life all my favorite characters. So there's not too much to say about this. This is a 6-star read. This is 3.5 stars of spice for me. There's lots of like heat to this book, but it's still like a slow burn in the aspects of their like romance. But I love this book so much. It's so good. Then I read The Leopard Prince. So I finally finished the Prince trilogy, or whatever it's supposed to be called, by Elizabeth Hoyt, and this was like my last book I had to read. I mean, when I went back through my books, I realized there is one of the Maiden Lane ones that I didn't read because I didn't want to read about the character, and there's one of the Legend of the Four Soldiers that I haven't read, but in general now, I'm all caught up on her books, and this book is about Lady George. Her name is Georgina, but they call her George, I kind of like that, who she doesn't need or want a husband. She owns her land outright. Her grandmother, who is very distrustful of men, made sure that her oldest granddaughter owned her land. Like, it's hers. And she has a steward whose name is Harry Pye, P-Y-E. And this book kind of has like a lot of stuff going on. So it starts with them having a carriage accident, and so there's like a forced proximity where they need to stay in this game maker's cabin overnight, and nothing happens between them during that time, but they both notice that they're attracted to each other during this interaction, and they both are a little bit freaked out by it because they know that it can't lead to anything good. There's also some bad things happening on her like tenant's land. where some sheep are being murdered, and everyone's blaming it on Harry because it started the same time he came back into town, and he actually has a grudge against his bastard father. Like, he's the bastard to his father type thing. And so everyone's blaming him for it. And so George and Harry are trying to figure out who's doing this. And they also end up having an affair along the way. Now, I want to tell you that I was enjoying this book so much until 80%. And then the heroine made me want to drop kick her. Okay? So this book ended up being a 3.5 star. So the heroine makes a decision about a surprise baby. Not a secret baby. I'm just putting it out there because people will want to know what the thing is. Like, there's a surprise baby from this affair. And there's a lot of, like, a struggle between them because he is a commoner. He, you know, doesn't think it could work out between them. Her family is like, you should either marry him or stop seeing him. And there's all this going back and forth. And she honestly, like, doesn't know what to do about the situation, and there's a lot of other things happening where we don't get a chance to talk about it. And so our heroine makes a decision and takes it upon herself to save him from being in a relationship he doesn't want to be in, and she makes a dumb decision. And I literally was like, oh wow, I'm loving this book. And then I gave it 3.5 stars because this did have 3 on the spice scale, and like, I gotta tell you, this was only the second book Elizabeth Hoyt wrote. It was very sexy. I'm not joking about that. Like, the sex that happens in this, you have a hero doing cunnilingus, you have the heroine learning how to do a blowjob for the first time, sexual exploration, like, all that stuff was hot. That's why I was loving it. And I don't even have a problem with the surprise baby. I know some people do. I don't have a problem with the surprise baby. I have a problem with how the heroine made a certain decision. That's what my problem. And then the last book I finished was another fan fiction. This one was called Bring Him to His Knees by Music. This was a very interesting one. This one was like a murder mystery, and Hermione and Draco go undercover to a sex club, a BDSM sex club, and it was very interesting. Harry was married to Pansy Parker in this one. But yeah, it was friends to lovers. It was an office romance. And what was interesting, though, is like they go to this kink club, but they only go there a couple times, and they don't do much that's kinky in this one. And there also wasn't even that much sex in this book, and this book was 1,000 pages. So it really started to get slow near the end for me. There definitely are some triggers in this one for a mother with mental illness, and yeah. And PTSD, obviously, were the big ones for this one. And grief as well. So I did enjoy this one. This one was 4 stars and 3.5 on the spice scale for me. So this was good. I'm very excited to try some more fan fiction. I have some from the list that you guys gave me, and I'm excited to try those. But it is Pharaoh Feb, like I said, is starting this week. So I'm going to be diving into a lot of the fantasy that's on my list, and I can't wait to do that. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the new channel members for joining. Make sure you can check out my merch down below if you're interested, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We just hit 12K this week. That's awesome. So thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.